and just keeping a chord pulse on the right and doing some crossovers. And I'll show you how you can do that to get some cool ideas. Okay, so I'm going to start with a simple C chord, which is C, E and G in your right hand. 1, 3 and 5 on your fingers. And we're just going to get this pulse going. Like that. Now we're going to be in the key of C. So when you're doing in music, usually there's like a bass key where all the music centers around. It's also called a tonic, it's also called a keynote. So in this case it's going to be C or C major, hence using the C chord. So the bottom note of that chord, C, is where whatever you're doing with the left hand, when you go back to C, particularly when you're going on the lower part of the piano and the bass, that's going to sound more grounded, more resolved. When you move away from it, it will sound a bit more like it's got somewhere left to go, somewhere yet to finish. So what I'm going to do with my left hand is just start playing bass notes, say on every 4 pulses. I'm going to pick a random white note underneath the chord. Just to get yourself going, and it's a way you can write songs too. I mean, this is the C chord with random bass notes at the bottom, keeping in mind that when you go back to C you'll get a sort of a resolved note. What also happens is if you hit any note of the C chord, the E and the G, that's quite secure as well. So you can start on C, go to D. Sounds like it wants to move. That's an E now, which is one of the notes of the chord. I'll just check that we're still recording here. Everything's okay. Yeah, still going. So we get E, and then we're going to F. It's good, it's a bit tense. Move up to G. That fits nicely, which is one of the notes of the chord. I can get a bit samey after a while, and I'll look at ways of making that more interesting as well. But now we're going to swap that with crossing over the top with the right, and of course you could swap hands. This kind of makes it more fun too. So I'm going to play some melody now, random melody notes, again longer notes over the top of this chord. Start to do is mix it up between the bass and the top notes in my go. it's a good little acrobatic trick. And if you can get something to tie it in, so for example, when I was doing that, that last little bit, you can try to play a game with yourself, try to remember where your left hand just was so you can go back to it, and it ties in. So if you go off it, you don't meander too far and be too random. So if I just play a D down here, play something up here, I'm playing a note next door to where I've just come from. So I'm just on D, try to remember that and just go a step away. Or I might go down to a C, or I might pick it up from where I went. If I'm going to play a couple of notes in the left hand, I might go back to the last note of the set I played. So if I can start it again. And then this hand might go. Try to remember that I was on E before. Get a little sick of that same chord going over, but it's a good way to get something sort of unified and going for yourself when you're starting to improvise. So what you can do is just slightly alter the chord too for variety. So as we're playing this C chord, you can experiment with just changing one note. Now I'd recommend just changing it a step up or a step down, or a second up or a second down, for those who know intervals. So if you're on the C chord, for example, I might start by altering the top note, that G, and taking it up to A, which means I'm just moving one note higher with my pinky maybe. So as I'm doing these changes, I've got another chord I can go to now. Time, go back to that first chord, and then I might move the middle chord, that E, down to D sometimes. Back to the first chord. That middle note. So that middle note E, just move down to D then. Move that bottom note, that C, down to B. So occasionally it would be like a. That subtle single note move does wonders. I could also take that middle note E and move it up to F. So how many variations I've got? I've got the C chord, then I've got D going down. That's 2 chords, 3 chords, 4 chords, 5 chords. That's 5 different chords I can play with just by altering a single note up or down a step for extra variation. So as I throw it in, I could really mix and match this all together. started with a basic C chord, use bass notes randomly, but still keeping in mind that key center of C. Then learning to jump over to the top and creating sort of higher melody notes. And in doing so, it gives you a kind of a consequential space, because while you're taking breaks between playing bass, you can then add some melody. Then when you go back to play the bass again, it gives the melody a bit of more space. Because often a tendency in improvising is to fill up everything, every nook and cranny with sound, where it's often good to take breaths and shape it out. And then we learn to change that chord. If it gets too monotonous, you can just alter it by one step up or down and get some pretty cool sounds of it. You can write songs like that. You can imagine where that could keep going. You could kind of take that chord, keep moving notes up, or suddenly go down. And if you start learning music theory, you can understand sort of what you've done or what you've accidentally done or what you've intuitively done. But there's some good intuitive ways of just exploring this around, just by doing simple adjustments to the notes and the music you're making. Anyway, that's improvisation tutorial.